I'm finally share with you something new. I'm proud to bring you the Pico 4.
Hello and welcome to Thursday Newsday, your #1 resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. Today is the big day. Look, some of these videos break big VR news, sometimes it's small but exciting news, but today we've got something massive, like possibly changing the entire VR landscape kind of massive, and not just new VR headsets. Thousands of new games are coming to VR. Practically every game is now a VR game. Pico has finally announced the Pico Neo 4 and 4 Pro, including price, release date, and more. We have some very disappointing PSVR 2 news, Oculus V44 update for Quest 2. This is probably one of the most exciting Tuesday Newsdays in a long time, so let's just get right into the news. I recently polled the VR community asking what is the biggest improvement they want to see in VR in the future, and the results were pretty interesting. While some people are looking for better headsets, the vast majority of people really just want more and better VR games. And I've really been noticing this too. While I do enjoy making VR hardware videos, I've noticed that people in general are just far more interested in upcoming VR software rather than buying brand new hardware, which makes total sense. And that also means I'll probably be having some BONELAB videos soon, if you know what I mean. But back on topic, probably one of the most exciting things that I've ever seen come to the VR landscape is on its way, and it's all about VR games. And while this may seem small now, this has the potential to completely change the entire consumer VR industry moving forward. What if you could play Final Fantasy VII, Gears of War, Mass Effect, Kingdom Hearts, Mortal Kombat, and more all in VR, and not just with the screen in VR, but with native VR controls unlike anything we have currently seen. And not just these titles, but every single Unreal Engine 4 game ever made. I'm going to be talking about two projects that have really caught my attention, but first we'll start off with this one. Luke Ross has been one of the most prolific modders in the VR scene for a while now. He's well known for his Cyberpunk 2077 and Grand Theft Auto 5 mods that add pretty good VR support, but most of his mods do require a typical controller and the support can be a little iffy. However, the next project I'm going to be talking about is something infinitely bigger, a universal Unreal Engine VR injector. Modders Praydog and the new Java Man have been working on this for quite some time. It's an upcoming tool that utilizes the built-in VR support that Unreal Engine already has to take existing games and inject proper VR support into just about anything. And once you realize just how many Unreal Engine 4 games there are, this quickly gets a little more exciting. The injector has already been seen working on a wide variety of games from Stray to Back 4 Blood, and the crazy part is that the VR support works really well. Detached cameras, synced eye rendering, all sorts of things that you wouldn't expect from a mod, but instead from full-on VR releases. And that's only the beginning. This baseline injector mod brings all sorts of exciting prospects, like a bunch of these AAA games getting full motion controller support, which is something a few of these VR injected games are already going to have. And like I said, this isn't just some theater view, this is straight up actual VR support, sometimes even completely changing the way the game plays. And suddenly, once this releases, thousands of games are going to have some level of VR support with easy modability for something like motion controller or other mods. And this really, in my opinion, just puts a whole new lease on life for PCVR in general. And if this is the route that things are going to go down for PC games, the PCVR catalog of good games could quickly jump from a handful to thousands, offering for the first time in a few years real value to PCVR users. And if you think that this is going to hurt PCVR game development, then I'd think again. The reason so many devs are focusing on Quest right now is because there are just more users there. Well, what happens when people realize that all of their favorite games are even better with the VR headset? The PC user base will inevitably climb. It just adds more usages to a VR headset, and that will lead to more developers looking at PCVR since there's more users. It's a win-win. We get thousands of new games games, modders can build better VR support for them, and more people will be looking at PCVR. The Injector isn't quite released yet, but as soon as it is, you know I'll be making a video on it, so stay tuned. However, another massive thing happened this week, actually just a few hours ago. For the first time ever, we may be having an actual Quest 2 killer on our hands. Pico just held its big press conference that we've all been waiting for, formally announcing the Pico 4 and Pico 4 Pro, two headsets that have been showing an incredible amount of promise to shake up the entire VR market. I'll start with the Pico 4. This headset is built to directly compete against the Oculus Quest 2 in every single way, but it's not just a competitor, it's on paper quite a bit better, far closer to something like an Oculus Quest 3. While it does have the same XR2 processor as the Quest 2, there aren't that many similarities. The Pico 4 features pancake lenses with an advertised field of view of 105 degrees. That may sound low, but it's actually higher than the Quest 2. It's kind of weird. FOV measurements are just an odd thing in general. It has a higher resolution of 2160 by 2160 per eye, stepless IPD adjustment up to 90 Hz refresh rate, new what they call super linear speakers, hand tracking, and a new camera for full color high resolution pass-through. But the exciting part is the weight and size, according to Pico weighing about the same as a can of soda, and with the head strap it's about 27% lighter than the Quest 2. But size-wise, the Pico 4 is significantly smaller than most other headsets thanks to these pancake lenses. Other changes are an update to Pico's operating system, bringing new avatars, this time it looks like with legs, full multitasking support, brand new controllers that honestly look pretty freaking nice, and a pretty interesting mixed reality capture tool using a smartphone camera. Other interesting features are things like Apple Health and Watch integrations, Pico Voice Assistant, and a new exclusive game coming to their store, that being Just Dance VR, which will likely use another one of their big announcements, their Pico Fitness Band, a device coming sometime in the future that will allow for full body tracking using an AI-based algorithm to track body poses. Not sure how accurate that will actually be, but it's still pretty exciting. Possible full body tracking to any capacity on standalone is just a crazy thing to think about. In terms of other games coming to the catalog to compete with the Quest Tour, you're likely not going to be missing out on too many things other than Oculus-owned games, as things like Walking Dead Saints and Sinners 2 and Green Hell are confirmed to be coming to their store, and it's launching for around the same price as the Quest 2, for 429 euros with orders starting tomorrow. And yeah, you got that right, tomorrow. And also, you got the other thing right, euros. This is for now a Europe and Asia only release, which we'll talk about in just a moment. First, let's talk quickly about the Pico 4 Pro, the headset that is not set to compete directly against the Quest 2, but instead against the upcoming Quest Pro. The Pro has full-on eye and face tracking, allowing for, well, your eyes and face to be tracked for whatever app that uses it, but also allows for full dynamic foveated rendering. At this point, not much was mentioned regarding PCVR capability for either, but I can imagine they'll have the same capabilities as the Pico 3. Full wired capability as well as wireless streaming, and from my personal experiences with the Pico 3, both were good and acceptable. No date was given for the Pico 4 Pro, but it's expected to launch sometime in the future, likely focused on B2B. So yeah, this is a legit possible Quest killer. I know lots of people have used the term Quest killer for random headsets before, but this is the first real one that we've seen. Same price, and depending on your region, maybe even cheaper than the Quest 2, possible full body tracking to some extent, which is better than no extent, better lenses and battery configuration, lighter and smaller, a decent game store catalog, better resolution. Of course, I'll have to try one out for myself and review it, but right now, this is looking pretty darn hot as a slight upgrade. It is a shame on the Europe only release, but I have a feeling that Pico is trying to really cement itself in the world first and get its store populated to make a much bigger move to North America and other countries. And even though the Quest 2 has an approximate 15 million users, there are a whole lot more people possible in the VR market than just those 15 million. So even though it feels like Meta owns everything, it's pretty much fair game, and Pico just showed its hand, and it's looking good. Quest 2 is finally getting the update we've been waiting for, V44, bringing all of the new capture tools like advanced recording and new security tools. These recording features allow for usable 16:9 aspect ratio ratio 1080p recordings at various compression and frame rate options, something that I've been waiting for forever. Once you get V44, all of this will be in the experimental features section. This update also brings security tools like parents being able to lock out sideloading applications and multiple app locks behind passwords, as well as content blocks based on game ratings. On the Sony side of things, a new trailer titled Feel a New Real was dropped, showing off the PSVR 2, its features, and a few videos from currently announced games. And the games all look amazing, but the really exciting part was Sony talking about the capabilities for eye tracking, showing menu selection in one of the games using your eyes to select things from your inventory. Eye tracking isn't just for avatars, foveated rendering, and data collection. The capabilities of eye tracking and VR really do bring it to a new level, and it's one thing that I really wish the standard Pico 4 had, but either way, it would need software that would support it, and I think that's actually the bigger problem. So I'm glad to see Sony actually using it for PSVR 2 games. But not everything was good from Sony this time around. If you are a current PSVR user expecting to buy PSVR 2 and already have a great catalog of updated games to play, think again. Sony announced that no PSVR titles will be backwards compatible with PSVR 2, meaning that as of now, you're going to just lose most if not all of those titles. This is said to be done because the controllers are so different between the two platforms that there would be entirely different control mappings for each of the games, among other issues, but that kinda doesn't make sense. The entire VR landscape has so many different controllers with slightly different mappings, so in my opinion, this kinda just seems like a way to sell upgraded or ported versions of games to people that have already bought those games, and I'm not sure how the situation will play out for titles like Beat Saber, but I can't imagine a world where you'd have to buy Beat Saber again on PSVR 2 after having it on PSVR, but I guess we'll have to see around launch time, which is rumored to be around early next year. Half-Life 2 VR is a long-awaited PCVR mod for the game that just launched to incredible acclaim, garnering over 1,500 positive reviews in just a few days. The mod will eventually completely revamp the graphics of the game, but for now, even with just the overhauled gameplay, I think a lot of people can agree, including myself, that Half-Life 2 is actually a better game in VR, which is surprising because Half-Life 2 is a much faster playing game than something like Half-Life Alyx. Maybe this opens up the idea that VR games don't have to be slow. But in general, it's a free mod and it's absolutely incredible, so give it a shot. Easily one of the best PC VR games out there already, Half-Life fan or not. And speaking of revamps, Contractors just got a pretty massive update, primarily to its mod kit, allowing all sorts of shenanigans to happen, including a mod that brings the best feeling Halo in VR that I've ever seen. Like, this is pretty much straight up Halo in VR, and it's got me feeling pretty happy. And this is probably something I'm going to be playing a lot. I've always wanted Halo in VR, but 343 probably wouldn't be able to handle that anyways, so I'll leave it to the modding community to do it. Things really are changing in VR. The VR modding revolution that I initially talked about way back with the BONELAB video is well underway, and I think we're about to witness one of the coolest stages in VR's history ever, especially with this VR INJECTOR mod, BONELAB, and all of these Contractor and Pavlov mods. Oh, and speaking of BONELAB, they announced that they're working on their final launch trailer with this song. Pretty cool. But now it's time for question of the week from Earthbounder. For those with the Quest 2, would you recommend upgrading to the new Quest after seeing the new design and features? Well, the new Quest Pro is supposed to be around $1,500, so it's not exactly in the same range or upgrade material if you ask me. Maybe if you just have loads of money to throw around, but the Pico 4 could be a great option if you're looking for a slight upgrade. However, I'd recommend just sticking it out with your Quest 2 as long as possible until some big upgrades come in the future for a way better price. And that's question of the week. Make sure to leave your own down below. I may just answer yours next. I will be streaming on Twitch right after this video. It's been a long time, but I'll be talking all about the future of VR and breaking down this Pico announcement, as well as announcing the giveaway winners for this PC. So join up in my Discord for a ping when I go live, and I just want to say thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas. I couldn't do any of this without you. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.